Hi everyone, I'm Brad Keelor, Director of the Geo-Institute. Depending on when you're watching this, the 200th episode of Director's Cut is either coming up really soon or it's just passed. Either way, yes, it's time for another contest. To celebrate 200 episodes of the show, we're turning it over to you, the viewers, for a special show in the new year, in early 2025. Just pick your favorite episode of the show and submit a question that I didn't ask that person. We'll put together a special episode with the 10 best questions, and of course, everyone whose question is selected will win a prize. So yeah, the fact that there are 200 episodes of Director's Cut out there probably means there are some you haven't watched yet. You might want to get on that so that you submit the best possible questions. We're counting on you. Keep watching our social media and our newsletter for info and details on the contest. And of course, thanks for watching Director's Cut. I am Brad Keelor. She is Wystan Carswell. Coming up next on a very special holiday edition of Director's Cut, you're going to find out something about Rhode Island that you probably didn't know.
The season's upon us, it's that time of year. Brandy and eggnog, there's plenty of cheer. There's lights on the trees and there's wreaths to be hung. There's mischief and mayhem and songs to be sung. There's bells and there's holly, the kids are gung-ho. True love finds a kiss beneath fresh mistletoe. Some families are...
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keelor. I'm the director of the Geo-Institute, and that is why we call this show Director's Cut. By now, you have probably noticed that something is up. Special background, special attire. I mean, if you've consulted your calendar, and I'm sure you have, you know is getting close to that holiday season. And so this is the second of two 2024 episodes of Director's Cut. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, after you watch this spectacularly festive interview today, you should head over to geoinstitute.org, and there you will find out a great many things, including that we are a technical society with about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and or geologists, and that we are part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And if you like what you see today, and I think you will, viewers, and if you don't, maybe take another hit of that eggnog, you click like, subscribe, and get notifications, and we'll let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. With the housekeeping items out of the way, you will notice that my guest is also festive, coming to us from Providence, Rhode Island, our first guest ever from Rhode Island, where she is a technical expert, which I do feel like is the most amazing job title ever. At Haley and Aldrich, it is Wystan Carswell. Wystan, thank you for doing this and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We have 10 questions the same way that we do every week, and 2 of them are the same as we ask everybody else. We must start with one of those. Describe your job in 45 seconds.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I'm a technical expert, and what that means is I specialize, in this case, in soil structure interaction problems. And then the other hat that I wear is as the offshore wind market lead at Haley and Aldrich.
You did that so quickly that you forced me to ask a follow-up question, and it's going to be an obnoxious one. Do you ever get to come into the room and be like, well, I'm the expert? How often do you get to throw that around? I mean, it's in your job title.
It is. I don't tend to wear that on my sleeve, though. I like to let my words speak for themselves. You know, I would hope that my expertise is self-evident and that I don't need to wave a flag around to
Oh, that
indicate
is
that.
fantastic. And it will no doubt become more evident as we go through this interview today, because we're going to hit you with some questions where you will be forced to show off your expertise. But before we do that, we must get to the hard-hitting questions that our Director's Cut viewers have come to know and love, and it's the reason they tune in. So, Wystan, we start with this. What movie are you most embarrassed to like?
It's hard to say about embarrassed, because maybe there's like a little bit of pride in there too. And the answer would be any movie with Harrison Ford in it.
Do you do marathons, or I mean, give us a scenario here. Like, because I've asked before people what movies they're flipping channels and they always stop for. But that reference is becoming less relevant as fewer and fewer people have TV. How do you like to enjoy a Harrison Ford movie?
Well, I couldn't believe that I was married to my husband for like 5 years without finding out that he had never seen the original Star Wars, like the ones from the 1970s, or Indiana Jones, any of them all the way through. So we did marathon through those pretty quickly.
Okay, you're not going to believe this. I had the exact same situation, except I was him. So I have to ask, what was his first reaction to the original Star Wars movies? Like, if he came up with a review for those three films, what would it be in a couple sentences?
Oh man, I'd have to ask him. In general, he liked it. I think he saw the cultural value and certainly appreciated understanding a lot more cultural references that he'd been surrounded by and had no idea about.
So that was big for me, but also I found, especially the first movie, I found it hilarious. And I don't think my wife thought that I would find it so funny. Now, we are going to finish the interview. Despite what I'm about to tell you, I have still never seen the Indiana Jones films. I have been on the Indiana Jones ride at 3 different Disney parks in my life. Very nice ride, but I don't really understand what's happening.
Well, sounds like you've got some homework to do.
After Clear and Present Danger. Or Air Force One. He was in Air Force One, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Fugitive,
we could go on all day.
Keep going. Yeah.
I mean, actually, we probably could. So the third question is always the researcher practice question. And because you are, as we said, in Providence, which is, for those of you who have not consulted a map, in the northeastern United States, you work on something that's not totally unique to that region, but pretty unique to that region, and it's urban deep excavations. And you, Wystan, are going to give us a potpourri of stories about this, projects that you guys have been involved with recently. So the floor belongs to you.
Yeah. So I always think that deep excavations in dense urban areas are exciting, especially when you're talking about Boston, and we've got a lot of soft soils, the famous Boston blue clay that you encounter all the time. I think probably some of the most researched soil that we have. I don't know. Can you think of another clay or soil type that,
it's pretty famous.
Oh yeah. I guess in our little sphere of the world anyway, probably to the greater YouTube audience, they're like, what? So what it means is there's a lot of close adjacencies, a lot of buildings, a lot of interests that are nearby, and everybody wants to know what's going to happen to my building, infrastructure, road, whatever it is, because of your excavation. So coming up with estimates for what that will be is a little exhilarating, because it's working with the underground. Like you can only know so much, even if you do have a really well-known soil type. And the thing that really hooks me is that you do a bunch of hard work with site investigation and soil property characterization, modeling. You come up with your estimates, and then you monitor everything, and you get to find out how good were you when you get to the end of the project. Were you close? Were you far? Were you really conservative, or were you maybe not? So it's a wild ride every time.
So first, we have to give a shout out to your episode of Field Trips that you recorded maybe about a year and a half ago. Pretty well known in the community, I think, story about you guys finding a historic ship during one of these excavations. And Damian Siebert talked about it in his episode of Director's Cut too. So we'll get maybe 30 seconds on that so that people get a teaser to go watch the other thing. But then as you're giving that answer, is there something else that you guys have found? I mean, the Northeast is wild, right? It's crazy. We went out to dinner with my parents recently, and the restaurant that we went to was built in 1755. You don't see that in a lot of the country. So after the ship, what's the next most exciting thing that you remember finding in one of these deep excavations?
Well, so find is maybe kind of a loose term here, but when we were working on the hub on Causeway, that's sort of the right downtown next to TD Garden, we ended up getting some phone calls from the landfills that we were sending the excavated soil to, and they said, yeah, well, we can't take the soil. We're like, well, what do you mean? Like, there are lots of arrangements in advance about these things. And they said, yeah, it's on fire. Well, excuse me, what? And it turned out that that area was an old, like, Revolutionary War era boat slip. And there were various munitions that at that time had floated down and, sunk to the bottom there. And then in later times where it was all filled up and became reclaimed land, as was very common in the Boston area. And so some interesting things happened when it became aerially exposed again after getting excavated up to build that. So, yeah.
That's pretty good. So now for everybody out there who hasn't seen it yet, give them a quick synopsis of the boat story so that they can go watch that one too. And we'll put a link to that down in the show notes.
Oh, yeah. Great. So for me, it was a pretty pedestrian day. I was doing some on-the-job training at a nearby site in the Boston Seaport area, and noticed there were a lot of news helicopters above, and they were really hanging out in the area. And I was like, oh, well, that's weird. I wonder what's going on. Come to find that as they were excavating an adjacent site, they found a wooden boat, a historic boat that had sunk. Again, similar story. It sunk, and then it had been filled over when that area became reclaimed land. And since they were building a basement down there, they excavated, they found this boat, they had to stop construction, bring in some historians and archaeologists to check it out, and to find out more, check out the video we made.
Oh, that was good. Good seg right into it. Again, we'll put the link to watch Wystan's episode of Field Trips down in the show notes. Last week, the American Geophysical Union conference happened, and we were at a reception afterwards, and the chairs in this place were clear. They were clear acrylic. And so it made me think that was it was not a piece of furniture I was a fan of. I don't know that I enjoy a clear chair. Wystan, what piece of furniture will you never understand?
I'm thinking, whenever you encounter a bathroom vanity mirror that isn't a cabinet, I always wonder why. And the number of times I've tried to open said mirror and then, come up disappointed. It's a tough day.
Okay, this leads to an intriguing follow-up question. Are you a cabinet opener? I mean, because I feel like I am terrified wherever I go that somebody's going to catch me doing something, and it can be anything, like being on the metro. Like, I don't even want to, like, if I'm on public transit, I don't even like putting my arms all the way up in the air, because I'm like, oh, it's going to be like, it's unflattering, or what if it's the end of the day and I smell or something like that? Have you ever opened a bathroom cabinet that you shouldn't have?
I
You didn't think we were going to
don't
go in this
think so.
direction.
We didn't. Yeah, no. And I realized that saying that, I was like, oh, that really could be construed like I'm going around trying to open up people's bathroom cabinets. No, I think that came mostly from our house hunt a few years ago. And for anybody who had tried to be in the housing market just a couple of years ago, when the rates were low, it was a real frenzy out there. So we looked at a lot of houses. We also offered on a lot of houses before we finally got one.
Kudos to you for trying to open those cabinets, because I think one of the things that amazes me is that when people do go through the house hunt, the things that they don't pay attention to or they miss. I mean, when things get crazy, when we bought our first house in 05, everybody was waiving inspections. And we really did not want to do that. And our real estate agent thought we were crazy. In the end, we ended up not having to do it, and we got a house and all of that stuff. I mean, was it the same kind of situation for you guys?
Absolutely. Yep. Now, I guess the one benefit that we did have, or like to think that we had, is that I'm a geotechnical and structural engineer, and my husband is also an engineer. He works on drinking water treatment. So when it came to the plumbing of the house and everything to do with water systems, he was really tuned into that, and I was looking for settlement cracks everywhere, just checking out the integrity of the house. And so,
do you ever find that in a situation like that it makes you overly cautious, though? Because I mean, I was all ready to pony up for the earthquake insurance when we bought our first house. And for everybody out there, I live in Northern Virginia, which is not exactly a super seismically active area, but we do have bedrock very close to the surface. And so any even moderately severe earthquake can do a lot of structural damage. In the end, we did not buy the earthquake insurance. But for you guys, do you feel like it made you overthink everything?
Maybe initially, but by the time we actually got this house, I mean, it hit a point where, we were just, we would offer on things, but we struck out so many times. I mean, my husband famously said, you'd walk into a house and he had to decide whether or not he was interested in buying it in less time than he's deliberated on buying a pair of pants in the past. So yeah, I mean, it was really like you'd go in on a Friday, and then like by the time you'd seen the house for 45 minutes, it was like, well, do you want to like spend all your money on this or not? And you gotta, and then you had to offer like right then. So
it is a really horrible experience. And I know that the majority of our viewers are younger. And so I feel really bad that we're talking about this, because it's a very discouraging process, I think, especially when you go through it the first time, because whether you like it or not, people are messing with you. You do have to make a lot of big decisions really quickly. I mean, we had one where, again, this was in 05 when things were insane. My parents came along with us to look at a couple of houses, and the real estate agent started essentially bullying them to tell them they needed to give us more money so that we could increase our offer. And the types of things that were happening, it also made it not very fun. Like, it's hard to see that finish line that you're trying to do something for your family, essentially. And
that was not my favorite process.
Well, we're glad you made it through, though.
Here we are.
We had to ask. You were a college athlete, Wystan, and we had to ask this question. It's only come up one other time, and that was in Roman Hritchu's director's cut when he talked about having athletes in his classes at Michigan. So I have to ask you, from the other perspective,
sure,
did playing a sport in college make academics any easier, or the other way around?
No. It was really difficult, mostly from a time constraint perspective, at least for me. Maybe other people felt differently. I think in some ways, at least kind of as my athletic career continued, it was really nice to have athletics as part of my schedule because, I don't know, burn off a lot of energy. I was on the rowing team. And so, having a really hard workout as part of the day kind of made me, when that was done, I was like, okay, homework. And I wasn't getting all antsy about it or about sitting for the rest of the day. It was, I'd done work. So
Did you guys have mandatory study halls or anything like that?
So when I was in college, I was rowing club. So nope, that was, it's a free for all at the club level.
Wow, which makes it even more impressive though, because I think club sports, for people who don't know, you've got your Division One or D2, I guess, sports, and those are, I don't know what the right word is. I didn't expect to talk about this today. But club level is essentially the students running the show most of the time, right? So that must have been extraordinarily challenging then. What made you want to keep doing it?
Oh, I love the sport. I mean, it was, I really, really enjoyed the sport. I would row over the summers too, out of Boathouse Row in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then I really enjoyed the sport. So my heart was in it and I wanted to keep going. And then actually because I had rowed club in college, I had 1 year of eligibility left. So I rowed at UMass Amherst during the first year of my master's. And that is D1. So that was definitely a different vibe. I wouldn't say that the club, it was difficult in a very different way. I mean, rowing at the D1 level, there was a lot more work involved. Certainly.
I can only imagine. So yeah, I can't remember. I mean, we must have had somebody on here who was, I guess Silas Nichols was a D1 athlete, and we've had a couple other people who may have been, but you're in the minority within GI to have had that experience. So very cool. And the other question we ask every single person in every single episode when they come on the show, we need your history with ASCE and GI. How did you first get involved?
Yeah, so in college, I think it was my senior year, I was the secretary of our ASCE chapter in college. And then after that, though, I wouldn't say that I was necessarily super involved at that point, other than that affiliation. It was really through my current employment with Haley and Aldrich that I got brought in, going to geo-congress, writing papers, presenting. That was mostly how I got involved.
I don't think I've ever asked anybody this one before, but when somebody came to you the first time to ask you, because I don't know, maybe you thought of it on your own, to write that conference paper, what was your reaction? What did you think? I mean, did it make sense to you why you would do it?
So I think someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I proposed the paper, and that really that was a natural transition for me because I was coming from a PhD where that was my job, was to write papers, and so that's kind of the whole way that I thought at that time, and I'd say to a certain extent still, which like, hey, this would make a really interesting paper. And actually, so I spent part of my PhD at NGI in Oslo, the Norwegian Geotechnical Institute. And one of the things that I always admired about how they function was that they're a consultancy, but then they also do a bunch of research. And what they described it as in a lot of ways was whenever they hit a problem that they either felt like, they couldn't get deep enough into an answer or were just otherwise unsatisfied with their ability to answer it from the consulting perspective, they would often pivot and then do research on it so that the next time it came around, they were ready, or they had a more informed perspective on how they wanted to answer it. And I loved that idea. And that's kind of the way that I've approached my career is, okay, whenever there is one of these juicy technical problems that, on a consulting schedule, you can only do so much, right? There are deadlines, there are construction schedules, and there are budgets, maybe most importantly, that limit how thoroughly you can answer a question. And so being able to bookmark those and say, hey, I want to look into that one a little bit more. I think that there's more here that we can really digest. And then, when you wait in the consulting world, then you also get the monitoring and the instrumentation results, which really help you to yeah, put your arms around a problem and figure it out, or
So what we
understand it better
always look
anyway.
for every week is some kind of compelling argument for our viewers to do something with GI. And I think, Wystan, you led us to this week's, and that's why people outside academia should write papers. You gave
Oh
a
yeah.
very good argument there. That was really structured. And so for everybody out there, I guess right now the thing to pitch is that the call for abstracts for Geo-Congress 2026 is open. That'll be open till the end of January 2025. You can submit your abstracts, and later on you'll have the opportunity to write a conference paper. So do not feel like it's just for the academics. We absolutely welcome them from industry. And I would say somewhere around 30% of our conference papers come from industry. So you will not be alone. So great job, Wystan, and maybe we'll get a few more abstracts from that
Oh,
crowd
good.
as a
Well,
result.
absolutely. And one more plug with that is the nice part about writing a paper is then after you've done all this hard work to understand your problem better, now it's recorded. You
That's
have a
true.
paper to walk away from that you can always reference and be like, what was it that we did last time when we ran into this? I have a paper and everything is already there for you. And it also makes it easy to then pass that paper around in your organization. And that's something that we've certainly done from with the Geo-Congress papers we've written is then when those problems come up, it can be like, hey, read this paper that we wrote that discusses this whole issue.
By the way, I'm the technical expert, and I said this. See, it all comes together. I like that.
Although, okay, there was maybe one time that kind of happened. It not exactly, but someone was asking me. It was a question about excavation support systems and related movements, and I gave them an answer, and then they said, "Yeah, but like, do you have a reference for this?" And then I sent them the paper that I wrote on it.
Boom. A true mic drop moment, as they say. I really enjoy that. We're going to talk a little bit more technical stuff now, and then we are going to talk a little bit about your time at NGI in just a minute. Offshore geotech. Let me tell you, the job in engineering is really to eliminate unknowns. If you want some unknowns, go offshore, people. So, Wystan, if you had to choose one, what technical issue associated with offshore geotech is the most complicated?
I think I'd say anything to do with cyclic loading. Yeah, how a soil responds under cyclic loading, it depends on the frequency, and it depends on the amplitude and the stress levels, and how many cycles are we talking about? So yeah, immediate response, long-term responses, it's a very, very rich and complex topic. And you can tell I'm a true engineer because when I say, oh, it's really complicated, I get really excited.
But I also like that you came up with that like that. That was pretty good. And, actually, my pitch here is a couple of years ago, we ran that offshore geotechnics conference for ISSMGE in Austin. And a couple of the pre-conference live streams that we did were on that very topic. And we can certainly link to one or both of those down in the show notes as well. Now, it's on to NGI. What a cool experience to be at the Norwegian Geotechnical Institute and to do it as a grad student, which I mean, we'll talk about that here. First of all, I guess the question is, well, no, first we're going to ask the question that I came up with, which is what was your most special moment at NGI?
That's tough, man. Yeah, that was a really special experience. There's a lot that I could say. I think what comes to mind first of all is the opportunity to work with Suzanne Lacasse. That was really cool. That was very profound for me, having read her papers, and then just as a woman in engineering, seeing someone like her just with a long and illustrious career was great. And then sort of next to that was just being so starstruck in an academic way, where walking down the halls of NGI, I'd be like, I've read their papers and I've read their papers, and I've read their papers. It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
So how do you feel it was unique for you doing that as a grad student versus, a lot of people who go to NGI are sort of mid-career and they're there for a different reason maybe than you were. What was that like for you?
Well, I mean, the big part was just, being an expat and living outside of the country was a major part of that experience. So, being in my 20s and, really being somewhere for longer than just a couple of weeks where you can sort of be like, oh, I'll make do. In this case, it was like, no, like you got to figure it out. I'm going to be here for a while. So kind of everything to do with living outside of the US, living in another country, language learning, everything to do with that. And then other than that, I think it was a really great time in my career to be exposed to the way that other people were thinking. That was a time very much that I was sort of formulating, I'll say like my engineering identity. Not that I'm not doing that now, but like how do I think about problems? How am I going to solve this? How am I going to break this down and think about it? And so getting exposed to new schools of thought and new problems was awesome. That was really, really great.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what time of year were you there? I think that's another key question about the NGI experience.
Yeah, I arrived in January and I left in June. So
wow, so you really got to see both sides of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
So how long were the days when you arrived?
If I remember correctly, the sun rose around like 9 or 9:30 in the morning, and then it set around 3 p.m.
Wow. And then by the time you left, it's probably not setting until 11:30 or 12 o'clock, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. On the front end of the trip when it was dark all the time, I remember asking some of the Norwegians, like, how do you deal with this? It's dark. What do you do? And they were like, the ski trails are lit till 10. And that was just full stop. That was the response. It was like, no problem. The ski trails are lit till 10. But that's because lunch conversation was dominated by, where did you ski? How long did you ski? How did you wax your skis? Oh, wait, lunch is over. Okay, back to work. This being cross country or Nordic skiing, that's. Yeah.
I like that though. That's still a pretty powerful endorsement for somebody going to work at NGI temporarily and having that experience. That was really good.
It was a blast. It was a blast. Yeah.
So we mentioned at the top of the interview, 201 episodes. You're our first guest to join us from Rhode Island. Hopefully not the last. We'll have some others, I'm sure, along the way. So we have to ask you a Rhode Island question. Fill in the blank. Rhode Island definitely is not
big.
What? I mean, are there any practical challenges to that? I live 10 minutes from Maryland and maybe 15 from DC and an hour from West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And I think the only thing it really does to my life is it creates these kind of artificial boundaries. Like around here, people from Virginia don't go to Maryland for stuff, and people from Maryland don't go to Virginia. It's the way it is. What is it like in Rhode Island?
I mean, I guess for the most part, I don't think about it until I see somebody with a bumper sticker that says "I never leave Rhode Island," because that actually takes a lot of skill and planning to not do that. Given that, you basically sneeze and you're in Massachusetts. Yeah.
So you're going to give us a Rhode Island fact here. I live for this kind of stuff. It better be spectacular.
Well, I don't know about that, but on the topic of Rhode Island and the size of Rhode Island, at low tide, the state is about 3% bigger.
Wow. I do like that. I did not know that one. That is fantastic. Whoa.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure someone can fact check me on that, but at least in ballpark terms, that is, yeah. And that
How
speaks to the size of the state and how much coastline we have.
That's true. How annoying are the Family Guy questions when they inevitably come up when you go somewhere? Because I have to imagine that's about the only thing that most of America knows about Rhode Island.
Most of the time, I actually haven't gotten any Family Guy questions.
Wow.
A lot of the time when I leave this area, more so the questions that come up are like assumptions that I live on an island, which I do not. And then the other is the belief that we are actually part of New York. And I'm like, nope, Rhode Island is its own state. It is not, in fact, an island. And that is actually, those are the two most common things that come up.
I think I always say that Director's Cut is at its heart a show about food, sports, and music, but we have another powerful, powerful mission, and that is debunking myths. And I think this is where we talk straight to the camera and we tell everybody out there that Rhode Island is, in fact, not an island. Wow. And not part of New York.
Nope. Yeah. Neither of those things are true.
That second one surprises me more than the first. Not that it's not part of New York. I was aware of that. But that people think that is fantastic. I really enjoy that a lot. Oh. So, as we mentioned all throughout the episode, and as you can see by our again, festive attire and the time of year and all that kinds of stuff, maybe even the music at the beginning of the episode, it is the holiday time. Wystan, we must close with this. What is your favorite holiday food or tradition? Or you could give us both.
Wow. So this year was the 14th year that we threw a holiday party on the first Saturday of December.
Wow.
That started when we were in graduate school, or early. I started it. I was trying to convince my now husband to date me at the time.
Wait, that was the original
whole
mission of the party?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had
Wow.
this fantastic holiday dress that anybody who's ever been in Western Massachusetts, like nobody dresses up. It's like blue jeans and Birkenstocks is like, all year round. So I was like, all right, I can't just like wear this. So I will throw a party that has a certain, dress code so that I will be in context and he can see me at this party in this awesome holiday dress. Clearly that must be why he married me. But,
So that was, do you have any evidence that that's why it worked?
Like that the holiday dress worked? I don't know. We started dating not that long after, and the rest is history, so.
Okay, so there was only one party then that he was not involved in the planning of. So he's been a part of the following 13?
That's right, yes.
Wow, how big is this party?
It's fluctuated over the years. At its smallest during COVID, we had 2 people come over, our neighbors who were right next door. That's the smallest the party. So there were the 4 of us. I considered it still a party because it wasn't just the 2 of us. Yeah. And at its largest, the last year we were in graduate school, we had about 90 people. And we rented a hall, the Knights of Columbus in Amherst.
Oh, classic.
so we could get everybody in there. Because, nobody's apartment was big enough for that. So you're somewhere in between that, those 2 bookends.
It's been a while since we've had a good Knights of Columbus Hall reference on the show. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. So this is one of the most spectacular answers we've ever had to the holiday tradition question. So I really, thank you, Wystan, for that.
Oh, good.
The bonus question does have to be your favorite holiday food, though. You got to pick something for us.
Okay. Favorite holiday food. I really love to cook and bake. And so I think some of the holiday baking around this time of year is exciting. I recently made a recipe that's been in my family for literally generations. Maybe I think my great grandparents started to make it. And we only recently found out the the actual name of it, my family always called them Baslas, but Basler Leckerli, probably said it wrong. They're German Swiss like almond honey bars. But yeah, so I ran into somebody recently who is Swiss, and they were very excited. And they were like, "How do you even know about this? Are you Swiss?" I was like, "No, actually, I'm not even a little bit Swiss." It was like, a neighbor of my great-great-grandparents in the Chicago area who was Swiss. Anyway, so that was just a fun, kind of go through it. I've got the recipe cards that my I think it was my great grandmother wrote out that my dad had, and it's got his notes on it for making these. So yeah.
Oh, that is super cool. And that is a great way to wrap this up. This is the magic of Director's Cut. You find out so many great things on here. So, Wystan, thank you for that. And thank you for all your great answers today and walking through some offshore stuff, telling us about NGI and the story of the holiday party. That was pretty good. We've had some How I Met My Spouse stories on here. Yeah. That's a lot better than just showing up at the ASCE student chapter meeting. I really enjoyed that one. So that was good.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
For all of our viewers out there, if you liked this, and you probably did because you're here at the end, again, click like, subscribe, get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. A couple of things you should not forget is that we are still running our 200th episode contest. Look down in the show notes for a link to that and to find out how you can enter and win a valuable prize. It's GI. It's always a valuable prize, right? The other thing is that this is, of course, our final Director's Cut of 2024. We're going to take 2 weeks off because of the way the holidays fall this year. We won't be back until January 8th with our best of 2024 episodes. So take a little time, catch up on any episodes you missed, watch some of the other amazing stuff on the YouTube channel, and just generally make merry and enjoy yourself during this holiday season. So, Wystan, thanks again for doing this. I hope it was fun.
Oh, yeah, it was great. Thank you for having me.
Nobody ever says no when I prompt them that it was fun, which, it's kind of a little self-esteem boost for me. And so
you put on the spot at all.
For everybody out there in viewer land, have a very, very happy holidays, a happy new year, and we will see you in 2025 with season 6, people, of Director's Cut. Okay, what's on your sleeve, too? I gotta ask. Oh my gosh, yeah. I didn't see the letters until now.
Oh, yeah, so it says Seasons Greetings.
That is spectacular.
It's also got shoulder pads. I just wanted to point out.
That. I like how you instinctively went for like a guns moment when you.
Well, I mean, how else are you? It starts here, so like I have to.